Hello everyone, welcome to the class. Today we're going to learn how to write Chinese characters, and we're going to use 20 Chinese characters as examples. And these 20 characters are easy to write, easy to understand, and they could represent the difference in writing Chinese characters, like between different characters. Basically, Chinese characters are written within a square. It is very different from English and usually goes very straight, and it wouldn't go tilted, each one character. So before we start, we want to talk about some of the basic rules of writing Chinese characters. All the Chinese characters are formed by strokes. Each character could have one stroke, two strokes, three strokes, and all the characters are formed by strokes. The strokes are written in a more fixed way for each character. You have to write one stroke first and then write another stroke, but basically for most Chinese characters, most of the time, the characters are written from upper side to lower side and from the left side to the right side. So this is not like applicable for all the characters for every stroke, but it is true for most Chinese strokes. So now let's start with the first Chinese character, which is very easy and everyone knows that. E pronunciation is E, and it means 1, the number 1. So it's very easy to see and to understand. There's basically one stroke, and based on the rule, you usually write from left to right. So when you write it, you start with the left corner and goes to the right corner in one stroke, and that's all. This is a character E, which means 1. Okay, so the next character, which is also very simple, pronunciation is R. R. Very obviously, it's very close to the character E, which is 1. This one has 2 strokes. Basically, you add 1 stroke on top of the character E, and you have 2 strokes to form the character. Again, if we use a rule that a character is written from upper side to lower side and from left to right, when you write this character, you write the first stroke on the top first, from left to right, and then you write the second stroke in the lower part, also from left to right. You need to pay attention that the second stroke is slightly longer than the upper stroke, and the upper stroke would appear kind of like in the middle of in between of the 2 ends of the second stroke. So this is the character R, which means 2. Next stroke, also easy to write, easy to understand, very connected to the first 2 characters. San. San. Very obviously, because this is connected to the first 2 characters, this character means the number 3. And as you can guess how to write this character, San, you write the first stroke first, second stroke in the middle, and then the third stroke at last. For this character, what you need to pay attention to is the second stroke is the shortest among the 3 strokes, and the last stroke is the longest among the 3 strokes. And write 3 lines and you have the third character. 三, which means 3. 三. Next one, it looks a little different. It has 2 strokes which are not horizontal, but they goes a little tilted. One is from the upper right side to the lower left side. The second one is from upper left side to the lower right side. So when you write it, you write 1 stroke in the left first, which is a little bit shorter, and then you write the second stroke, which is longer, also appears in the right. So this character is pronounced ba, ba, and the meaning is the number 8. Ba. It only has 2 strokes, first stroke shorter, second stroke longer, and there you go, you have this character, which means 8. 8. Alright, the next character, which kinda looks a little similar to the previous one, and it is true that a lot of times when you just started learning how to write Chinese characters, you could get these two a little confused. But the difference between these 2 characters is, when you look at the number 8, 8, the 2 lines are not connected. The 2 strokes are separate from each other. But when you look at this character, the 2 strokes are connected with each other, and the second stroke starts from like maybe 1/3 place of the first stroke, and it goes from the upper right side to the upper left side to the lower right side to write this character. This character means people, person, human beings, anything like that, and pronunciation is 人, 人. So when you write it, you write the first stroke on the left first, and then the second stroke on the right. Make sure that the 2 strokes are connected. The second stroke starts from 1/3 of the place on the first stroke, and you write from there. Then you have this character, 人, which means people, human, person, persons, anything like that. 人. Next character, 山, 山. This character means mountains, mountain, hills. This character looks a little bit different from the previous ones. When you write it, you don't start from the left, you actually start from the middle. Like I said before, the rules don't apply to all the characters, but they're mostly useful for most of the characters. But for this one, you actually would need to start from the middle stroke over here, which is the longest stroke. Second stroke is very different from the previous strokes we learned, which is not just one straight line. Second stroke goes like this, and it forms the left part and the lower part of this character. Third stroke goes in the right. And all these strokes together, you have the character 山, which is very easy. What you need to pay attention to is the first stroke is the longest one, which has more of a peak in the top. And when you write this, make sure that you write the first stroke the longest, and the second and the third stroke, the straight down part, the vertical part, the head of the vertical part, the beginning, is lower than the first stroke. So then you have the character shan, which means mountains. This character pronunciation is huo. Huo. It means fire. Kind of looks like the character ren with another 2 dots, but when you write it, you would follow the rule that you start from the left first and then goes to the right. So this is the first stroke, second stroke, third stroke, and the last stroke. So the 2 very short lines are kind of like dots, and one goes from upper left to lower right, one goes from upper right to lower left. And in the middle, the 2 longer strokes, they look like exactly like the character ren, and altogether you have the character huo, huo, which means fire. The next character is called tu, which means soil or ground. It's very simple. Basically, you have 3 strokes, and from what we talked about before about the previous characters, you probably have already known how to write this character. So you start with the first horizontal stroke, and then you write the second vertical stroke, and then the last stroke to close the second stroke. So you have 3 strokes. The last stroke is the longest. It's longer than the first horizontal stroke. You have the character tu, which means soil or ground. Tu. Next character pronunciation is mu. Mu. It means wood. Mu is also a very easy character to write. You already learned all the strokes that you see in this character. You start with a horizontal line first. Then you write the vertical stroke. Then you put the last 2 strokes, one on the left, one on the right. The last 2 strokes are right below the first horizontal stroke, and all the lines are connected. Then you have the character mu, which means wood. The next character you have is men, which means the doors, the door. To write this character, you start with a dot. Then you write the vertical stroke, and then you put in the last stroke. What you need to pay attention to is when you write the last stroke, make sure that you pay attention to the last little hook formed by the end of the last stroke. You have to write the little hook to make it a very decent Chinese character. So this one is men. Next character we have is Kou. Kou. The character Kou means the mouth. Looks like just like a little square, right? But when you write it, it's actually 3 different strokes. You start from the left, write the vertical stroke first. Second stroke goes horizontal and then goes down. Last stroke goes horizontally from left to right. Altogether, you have the character Kou, which means mouth. Okay, the next character we have is Mu, which has the same pronunciation as the character would, but this one means the eyes. So when you write this character, you start with the first stroke on the left, and then the second stroke, as you may know, it will go horizontal first and then goes down. And when you write this stroke, make sure that you know you need to form a little hook by the end of the stroke, just like when you were writing the character Men. After these 2 strokes, you write the 2 strokes in the middle, and they are connected with the first stroke you wrote, but they go past the middle, but they're not connected with the second stroke. Then you close the box with the last stroke, and then you have the character Mu, which means the eyes. Mu. This character is Yang, which means sheep or goat. Yang. Yang. When you write this, you start with the first 2 strokes on the top, which are like 2 dots. It goes in opposite ways, one from left to right, one from right to left. First stroke is slightly smaller than the second stroke. Then you write 2 horizontal strokes first. The last horizontal stroke, and then the vertical stroke. When you write these 3 horizontal strokes, make sure that you know the last stroke is the longest, but the second one is the shortest. The vertical stroke would go through the second and the third stroke, but it starts in the first stroke. It doesn't go through the first horizontal stroke. There you go, you have the character Yang, which means sheep or goat. Next character is Ma, which means horse. Ma. This character looks like a lot of strokes, but it's actually only 3. First stroke goes horizontal first and then goes down. Second stroke goes down first, horizontal, and then goes down. So see, you have 2 strokes, and they would form the majority part of this character already. The second stroke, by the end of it, make sure that you have the little hook, just like when you're writing the character Men or the character Mu. Make sure that you have the little hook by the end of the stroke. You finish this character by writing a horizontal stroke, which kind of looks really like exactly the same as the character Yi. And then the 3 strokes together, you have the character Ma, which means horse. Next one is tian. Tian. This character means the field where the farmers were walking. Like they would work there and they would walk in between to plant. So this character tian means the field. It looks like the character Kou, which means the mouth, with a little cross in the middle, and it's exactly like that. So you write the first stroke, which goes from upper side to lower side on the left. Second stroke, make sure you have the little hook by the end of the second stroke. Third and fourth stroke, you fill in the little cross in the middle, and then you close the box with the last stroke in the end. And then you have the character tian, which means the field. This character, Li. Li, it means power. This character has two strokes. First one, you write the horizontal line first and then goes down. Similar to the other strokes we talked about, you need to form a little hook by the end of the first stroke. Then you go through the first stroke, write the second stroke, and that's all. That's all for this character. Li, Li, and it means power. Okay, now, and then you put the two strokes we just talked about, tian and li, together. You have the character nan, which means male, man. You just have the two characters together, put one on top, put one on bottom. All together, you have the character nan, nan, which means male or man. Okay, since we talk about man, we need to talk about woman and female. And there you go, this is the character female or woman. When you write this character, you start with the line in the middle first, and it goes down and then goes a little bit to the right side. Then you write the second stroke that goes from the upper right side to the lower left side. Last but not least, you go through the first two strokes, write the horizontal stroke. The horizontal stroke goes really long. It goes through both of the first and the second stroke. 3 strokes, you have the character 女, 女, which means female or woman. Next stroke is called 肉. 肉. 肉, it means meat. The meat that you eat. Meat. Pork, beef, chicken, all kinds of meat. Start with the first stroke, second stroke, and again, like we talked about before, when you write the second stroke, you need to have the little hook by the end of the stroke. Next line goes through the second stroke in the middle and goes into the little box. Then you write a little dot in the last 2 strokes. So the last 4 strokes kind of look like 2 人, like 2人, one on top, one on bottom, and it goes through the second stroke. So altogether you have the character 肉, which means meat. Okay, here we have the last character. The pronunciation of this character is 囧. 囧. It means awkward, weird. If you look at this character, it just looks like a really awkward face, and it's used in online languages, mostly used by young people who type this character online to show like something is awkward, something is weird. Okay, so when you write this character, like usual, you start from the left, second stroke, and of course by the end of this stroke you have a little hook by the end. And then you write the things in the middle. One in the left, one in the right, looks kind of like the character 8. Ba, ba. And underneath that, a short vertical stroke. Another stroke starts from the beginning of the first vertical stroke, goes horizontally and then goes down. But this time you don't have the hook. The last horizontal stroke, close the box, and then you have the character 囧, 囧, which means awkward or weird. Okay, now you have 20 characters, and basically when you learn these rules, you could use the strokes from these characters to write any other new characters you see when you keep learning Chinese. Although stroke sequence is important for Chinese, but not everyone knows how each character has different sequences, because sometimes there are exceptions, and not even all Chinese know how some of the characters should be written in a certain way. So, although it's important for you from the beginning to learn the stroke sequences, I would recommend learning the basic rules, learning the basic strokes, and learn how to write each character. But if you really couldn't remember how the stroke goes, oh, should I write this line first, or should I write that dot first, or should I write this vertical stroke first? If you really couldn't remember, it's not a huge deal, because when people see what you write, they see the final work. They don't see how you write each strokes. It's important to learn, but it's not something you should stress yourself about. So, here you have 20 characters, and make sure that you will use these 20 characters to practice. And we'll see you next time. Bye!